highly welcome once again. This is Invisible M Podcast. How are you doing?
On the hill, stomach fills the air.
If you're here again, then I do believe it actually means that you made a decision. Yes, that was our previous episode.
Hearts beating wild, life without a care.
Now, you decided to stay curious, isn't it?
Dance to the rhythm.
You decided to stay engaged. And most importantly, you decided not to switch off from the world, even when the world feels noisy, confusing, or maybe, should I say, overwhelming.
Move with the motion, let the music take control.
In our previous episode, it was titled The First Decision of the Year 2026. And remember, we spoke about intention. Yeah. We also spoke about direction. We spoke about the quiet power of choosing what you pay attention to when the year is still young. Today's episode follows kind of directly from that moment, because once the first decision is made, the next question becomes unavoidable. Guess what? What happens next? So, before I move on, let me ask this. Do the systems around us respond to intentions? Do institutions change? Do leaders adapt? Do teams evolve? Or do we just simply watch the same cycle repeat themselves under different headlines? Well, today we're going to kind of we're actually going to move through sports, a little bit of politics, power, performance, and accountability. And we're also going to kind of zoom out and zoom back in again. So stay with me. And a lot of the center of it all, we are going to ask a very simple question. And that is, who is really in control? Now, let us begin with some sport first, because sport often tells us the truth before politics does, isn't it? Now, before we just talk about that, let me just briefly chip this in here. If you're looking to unleash your creativity and make beautiful handmade rugs with ease, check out this Best Gear Rag Tufting gun with a carpet trimmer kit. Complete. You don't even need other accoutrement to start your tufting project here. And you can get this on Amazon. I'm going to put the link below this podcast here. It is a complete beginner-friendly rag, making your tufting project a really, really awesome one here. So yes, if you're looking for something like that, there you go. Whether you want to kind of create, something really simple to hang as a design in your living room, or you just make a design as a gift, a custom design as a gift, or you intend to make carpets. Yeah, you can use it to make carpets, or, anything tapestry, then perhaps you might want to take a look at this one here. This is a fun and rewarding way to express your artistic side. Get yours now. Let's go back to sports. I'm really, really excited, folks. So here, Manchester United and the burden of history. Now, we all know that Manchester is it's not just a football club. It is a symbol. It is a memory. It is kind of expectation passed down from one generation to the next. When people visit, the Old Trafford in the UK, they are not just attending a match, okay? They are visiting a story that has been told for decades. And right now, that story feels kind of uncertain. Manchester United has kind of parted ways with Ruben Amorim. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about that. After just over a year in charge. On paper, 14 months, it's not really long. But in reality, at a club like Manchester United, it can feel like an eternity if progress is not visible. Amorim arrived with reputation, promise, and tactical ideas that many believed could kind of modernize the club. Yet results never quite matched ambition. 6th place in the league is not a disaster, if you ask me. But for many Manchester United fans, it is not success either. performances lacked identity. It's like the team often kind of looked unsure of itself. Fans questioned selection, shape, and intent. Former players voiced concern. Supporters also voiced frustration. What am I even talking about? So here is the question, yeah. Was Amorim the problem? Or was he simply another name swallowed by a much bigger issue? Manchester United has kind of changed managers repeatedly since Sir Alex Ferguson era, and each one arrived with a plan. Okay, each one also spoke about rebuilding. Each one also kind of eventually faced the same pressure: win now, win now. That's all we know. Or fix everything now, or restore greatness immediately. My question is that realistic in this modern football? Or are clubs like Manchester United trapped by their own history? As Darren Fletcher steps in on the interim basis, the club once again stands at a familiar junction, I think. Now, do they chase stability, or do they choose philosophy? Or do they choose another quick fix? Ask yourself. And more importantly, how much patience does modern football really allow? Live football and the pressure of the moment, if you ask me, is a kind of discussion that will never end. It kind of brings this particular discussion I'm having with you into the present moment, into live football, into the rhythm of 90 minutes that define seasons. The live match involving Manchester United currently unfolding represents more than just points on a table. It represents reaction, actually. It also, in terms of the players know the manager is gone. They know eyes are watching. They know futures are being evaluated in real time. So, well, this is when football becomes psychological, if you ask me. Now, will players step up to improve themselves, or will they kind of retreat into safety? We shall see. We shall see. Or maybe we shall see if it's freedom or if it's fear. At every pass, every missed chance, every defensive lapse now carries an added weight, if you ask me. Now, fans are not just watching the bill, they're also watching body language, they're reading intent. And this is where football mirrors life. When leadership changes, when structures shift, how do individuals respond? Do they take responsibility, or do they just wait to be told what to do? Okay, now let's just cross to another continent here. Now let us just cross continents and switch sports, because the NBA offers a different but equally revealing story. The Golden State Warriors versus the Los Angeles Clippers was not just another regular season, if you ask me. It was a clash of identity, experience versus hunger, legacy versus urgency. The Clippers emerged with a win, amazingly, but then the scoreline only tells part of the story. Now, Kawhi Leonard delivered a calm, controlled efficiency. He did not need theatrics here. He did not chase moments. He simply kind of executed. And also when we talk about Stephen Curry, as always, he tried to bend reality with his shooting, movements, and creativity. And yet, it was not enough, okay? This game highlighted something important. Even greatness has limits when structure breaks down. That's all I'm trying to say. The Warriors still carry championship DNA, no doubt. But then the league has evolved. Depth matters. Defense matters. Consistency also matters. So the question becomes, can dynasties adapt fast enough in a league that never waits? And what happens? What happens when the margin between winning and losing becomes one defensive rotation? One missed rebound, one lapse in concentration? Well, whether it's football in England or basketball in America, the message is simply the same. Past success does not guarantee future control. And this brings us naturally to the world beyond sports. Now, I read this news about power, accountability, and a courtroom in New York. Few images are as powerful as former heads of state standing before a foreign court. Now, you know where I'm going to. Nicolas Maduro's appearance. That's all I'm trying to talk about. So, he in a federal courtroom in New York is not just a legal event. It is a geopolitical statement. It is symbolic. It is controversial. And it is deeply unsettling. Well, depending on where you stand, by the way. Now, Maduro insists he is innocent. He insists he is Venezuela's legitimate leader. The United States insists the changes are valid and long overdue. Supporters call it justice. Critics call it overreach. What about you? What do you call it? So now let us kind of pause and ask the uncomfortable question. Who decides accountability when power crosses borders? Is this the future of international justice, or is it a selective enforcement shaped by politics rather than principle? I'm just asking. Because for millions of Venezuelans, I believe this moment carries emotional weight. For global leaders, it sends a signal. No one is untouchable, that is for sure. Or perhaps I should say, only some are. I'm playing the devil's advocate here. Now, once again, I would like to say that control becomes the central theme. Language, perspective, and the global south all in one. Now, looking at a coverage from a Spanish language outlet that I kind of chanced on, I did some translations there, and it kind of reminds us of something crucial. The same event sounds different depending on who is telling the story. So in Latin America, Maduro's court appearance is framed within a history of intervention, power imbalance, and sovereignty. Whereas in the United States, it is framed as law enforcement. Both narratives exist simultaneously, if you ask me. So whose version becomes dominant? And how often do we stop to ask what voices are missing? With everything I've said right now, let me bring you back to the Invisible M's mindset, okay? This podcast has never ever been about headlines alone. It's about patterns. It is about behavior. It is about systems. Sport teaches us about preparation and pressure. Politics teaches us about power and consequences. Media teaches us about framing and influence. I'm just saying. And you, listening right now to me, sit at the intersection of all this. So here is a question worth sitting with. In your own life, where do you give up control without realizing it? Do you react or do you respond? Do you follow narratives or do you question them? Well, this episode is not asking you to choose sides. It is asking you to choose awareness. We will continue the story right in a brief moment. Stay with me. So I just want to tell you a little bit about something else that I would like to introduce. And this is basically for non-native speakers. If you want to improve your business English with real-world skills, check out this Business English Level 1 and 2 for non-native speakers, negotiations and email writing. Exactly. And so, yes, this is written by Juliet Amper. This practical guide helps non-native English speakers master the language of negotiations and professional email writing so you can communicate confidently in global business settings. Forget AI. AI can only lead you to some point. But then when it comes to face-to-face, we still need that book. Whether you are a student, job seeker, or a professional working in an international environment, this book gives you the key tools to write clear, persuasive, and effective business English. It's available now on Amazon Kindle, so you can start learning instantly on any device. I'll also leave that link in the comment section of this podcast. Thank you for staying with me. If you're just staying on, then perhaps I do believe that you're enjoying this podcast. Will you kindly do me a favor? Could you please share and let someone else who also is interested in what Invisible M talks about? Thank you. All right, so let's move back here. Now, if you stayed with me, like I said earlier on, then you are already doing something that many people do not do anymore. You are listening past the headline, and that is really good. Thank you for that, by the way. So you are listening past the headline and also stay with the story instead of jumping to the next distraction. That means that, well, here we go. In the previous, before the advert, I was just talking about control. Now, I was also talking about how sport and politics expose the illusion of certainty. Now we move deeper into the core of today's episode. This is episode 6. And that is the emotional center of today's episode. So let us return here. Let us kind of remember the previous episode, last episode 5, we talked about the first decision of the year 2026. And if you listened carefully, you will remember the underlying message. That episode was not about resolutions. It was not about motivation, or it was just not about any code. It was purely about something quieter and far more dangerous. The first decision of the year was not what to do. It was kind of a notice, if you ask me, what to allow in your mind and also what to question instead of accepting automatically. So now, as we follow up, we must ask, what has the world shown us deeply just days into the new year? Well, it has showed us impatience, if you ask me. It has showed us instability. It has also shown us that power still resists accountability, but also that pressure is building and building up. And it has shown us also that sports, once again, is telling the truth early. Live football as a physical or a physiological theater is like when a team plays immediately after managing upheaval and then something fascinating happens. Players are suddenly kind of exposed there and then. There is no long-term plan to hide behind, no settled hierarchy, no clear excuse. Every movement becomes a message. So who takes responsibility, who hides, who demands the ball, who avoids the risk are all questions that I do ask from time to time. Watching Manchester United in this moment is like watching an organization during a sudden leadership vacuum. You see who understands the system and who relied on instruction. That is, if you watched it. You see who plays for the badge and who plays for safety. But then here is a question worth asking. How often do we only discover our true habits when structure disappears? Now, football does not lie. Under pressure, instinct takes over, and instinct reveals preparation. So this is why fans scrutinizing body language so intensely kind of have a misplaced past that can be forgiven. A lack of intent cannot, if you ask me. To be honest, Manchester United's greatest strength has become its heaviest burden. Legacy creates expectation, expectation creates pressure, pressure shortens patience. Now, in modern football, rebuilding requires time, don't forget. But then, legacy demands results like yesterday. So this is kind of a contradiction that eats clubs alive. So when Ruben Amorim was dismissed, it was not just a football decision, it was a signal. The club chose urgency over continuity once again. But let me ask you, is that wrong or is it inevitable? And here is when you should pause and reflect personally, in my opinion. In your own life, do you allow yourself time to build, or do you constantly demand finished results from unfinished systems? That question applies far beyond football. Now back to basketball. Now Golden State has championships. They have experienced systems, institutional memory. But then basketball does not respect nostalgia. Yes, I've said it. The Clippers, on the other hand, did play with a sense of urgency. They knew the window was very close, and so they knew the health, the contracts, and the timing were all kind of a dictating success for them. The result was close, but the tone was different. One team tried to manage the game, and the other tried to seize it. And then once again, like I said, control becomes the illusion. If you ask me, you can actually control preparation, but you cannot fully control the outcome. Now remember Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry can do everything right and still lose. Kawhi Leonard can stay quiet and still dominate through efficiency. So then, what actually wins? This is where sports teaches life lesson better than any self-help book I've ever read. News, power, and the theater of justice, all of that. Well, let's step back into politics a little bit. Nicolas Maduro in New York courtroom is not just a legal image. It is a theater. It is symbolism. It is a narrative warfare. Supporters kind of see a leader standing firm against imperial power. Critics see a criminal finally facing consequences. But then observers see precedent. And let me tell you, precedents can be dangerous. If powerful leaders can be extracted and tried abroad, what does that mean for international norms? Does it strengthen justice or does it weaponize it? And here is where the podcast kind of become essential. I'm talking about Invisible M's podcast. Power is really about morality alone. It is about leverage. The timing of this event matters a lot. The messaging matters as well, including the framing of it. Once again, ask yourself, when justice becomes like global, who controls the rules? And when rules shift, who adopts the fastest? This bridges us to another uncomfortable truth. Most people do not analyze news. They absorb it. They scroll, they react, they argue, but then they rarely question structures. The Spanish language coverage that I watched kind of frames the story through history and sovereignty. And then the English language coverage frames it through legality and enforcement. Both are incomplete without the other, I tell you that. So which one feels true depends on where you stand, really. This is why the first decision of 2026 mattered so much, especially in our last episode, because awareness changes consumption, and consumption shapes belief. So here is something rarely discussed in the media. People do not just watch sports for entertainment. They use it to regulate emotions. Victory offers release, while defeat offers justification for frustration. Sports become a socially acceptable outlet. But then when sports becomes unstable, when teams struggle, when identity feels lost, fans feel it personally. I tell you that. Manchester United supporters are not just angry about the results, they are grieving certainty. And that grief shows up as impatience, if you ask me. So again, let's reflect here. What do you use to stabilize your emotion? And what happens when it starts to fail? Ladies and gentlemen, momentum is a dangerous thing, if you ask me. It compounds quietly. Early decisions, early reactions, early narratives, all of them put together makes it dangerous. In sports, a few early losses can define an entire season psychologically. In politics, early moves can define legitimacy. In personal life, early habits define the year. Yes. So that is why this follow-up episode matters a lot. The world is already telling us what kind of year it might be. Fast, unforgiving, highly visible. So the question becomes, will you move deliberately or will you react instinctively? So here's my personal question. This podcast has always asked different kind of questions. Not what happened, but why it landed the way it did. Not who won, but then who it revealed or what it revealed. You know what? Let me just dazzle you with this interlude.